When I called my son Max to ask about his wedding date, I wasn't prepared for what happened next. Before he could even answer, my daughter-in-law Lena looked straight at me, smiled coldly, and said, "Oh, we already got married yesterday. We only invited special people." Those words stopped me cold. Special people. For 3 years I had paid their $500 monthly rent. I bought all the furniture in their home. When they had no food, I filled their fridge. And yet, I wasn't considered special. I stood there in my own living room, gripping my phone like it weighed a ton. Max wouldn't look at me. Lena sat down comfortably on the sofa I had bought for them, acting like nothing was wrong. In my closet was a soft pink dress I had chosen just for her wedding, still untouched. I had spent $200 on it, imagining how I would look standing beside my son in his wedding photos. Photos I would never be part of. The new shoes were still in their box. Along with them hung my belief that I mattered on the most important day of my only son's life. For weeks I had been planning everything. I saved $1,000 to give them as a wedding gift. I called my sister Diana in Chicago to share the happy news. I cleaned my entire house, thinking they might come over to celebrate after the ceremony. All of it disappeared in one moment because of those 4 painful words. Only special people. Max finally spoke, his voice sounding rehearsed. "Mom, it was just something small, very private, just us and the witnesses." But I knew that wasn't true. I saw the pictures online. I saw Lena's parents smiling next to the bride and groom. I saw her brothers and sisters raising champagne glasses. I saw her in a white dress, surrounded by family, just not mine. I also saw the wedding dress, the same one I had helped pay for with the $800 I gave her just a month earlier for her personal expenses. I saw everything I was never meant to see. Exactly 1 week later, 7 days after that humiliation, Lena called me again. But this time, her tone was completely different. The confident woman who had shut me out of her wedding was gone. Now she sounded nervous and desperate. "Renate, the rent is late," she said quickly. "The landlord is upset. He says if we don't pay this week, we'll be thrown out. You forgot to send the money." Her voice shook, like her whole world was falling apart. I stayed quiet for a moment. My mind went back to all the times I rushed to the bank to make sure that payment was sent, all the plans I canceled so they wouldn't lose their home, all the days I lived on cheap food just so I could give them money for the things they wanted. And now, after being shut out of the most important day of their lives, she was calling me as if nothing had happened. "Lena?" I finally said, calmly, calmer than I ever expected myself to be. "Didn't I tell you I only help special people?" The silence on the other end was heavy. I could hear my own heartbeat. For the first time in years, I wasn't the one shaking. She was. I don't understand," she stammered. "We're special to you. You're like a second mother to me." It was all lies. That sweet voice, the one she only used when she needed something, came flooding back to me. The same voice she used when asking for money for the wedding dress, the honeymoon, and the rings. Things I helped pay for, never knowing I wouldn't even be allowed to witness the moment they were used. For years, I had lived carefully around them, watching every word I said, measuring every gift, trying not to upset anyone, always hoping my support would earn me a place in their lives. But in that moment, I finally understood the truth. All of this just to receive the smallest bit of love from my own son. I had been the perfect mother, the easygoing mother-in-law, the quiet supporter who never complained while being treated like I didn't exist. But those words, "only special people," stirred something inside me that had been asleep for far too long. I started adding everything up in my head. Over 3 years, I had given them more than $20,000. Rent, groceries, gifts, emergencies, and every sudden request. That money came from my retirement savings, from what I had carefully set aside, and from what my late husband left me so I could live peacefully in my later years. And what did all of that buy me? Being treated like a stranger on my own son's wedding day. That night, after the call ended, I sat on my bed and cried. But these weren't gentle tears. They were filled with anger, with years of swallowed frustration, with humiliation I had quietly accepted for far too long. I cried over every moment they made me feel like my love was a problem, my presence unwanted, and my wallet the only reason I mattered. I cried for the woman I had become, a mother who gave everything and lost herself in the process, trying to stay important to people who clearly didn't value her. When morning came, something inside me was different. It wasn't just the pain anymore, it was colder, stronger. I stood in front of the bathroom mirror and studied my reflection. The same tired eyes, the same wrinkles that told the story of years spent loving others without getting much back. But there was something new too. A firmness in my gaze, a strength I didn't recognize. A resolve that had been buried under years of always saying yes. I made my morning coffee, just like I had done for the past 40 years. But this time was different. I didn't think about calling Max to see how he was doing. I didn't reach for my phone, hoping for an apology. For the first time in a long while, I chose silence, and myself. For the first time in a very long while, I made myself my top priority that morning. I sat at the same table where I had planned surprises for them, sorted their bills, and quietly cried when they brushed me aside. But that day, the table served a different purpose. I pulled out my checkbook and my bank statements and started adding everything up. I needed to see the truth in clear numbers. The rent alone was $500 a month for 3 years, $18,000. Groceries and household items averaged about $200 a month, another $7,200. Birthday, Christmas, and anniversary gifts added up to at least $3,000. Lena's medical emergencies cost $800. The car loan they never repaid, $2,500. The air conditioner repair in their apartment, $600. Living room furniture, $1,200. The total came to $33,400. That was the full cost of my kindness. $33,400 taken from my husband's inheritance, from my pension, from savings I built slowly over decades of honest work, all of it spent to keep 2 grown adults comfortable, people who couldn't even show me basic respect. Just then, my phone rang. Max's name appeared on the screen. Normally, my heart would have raced. I would have answered right away, hoping for an apology, hoping he would tell me everything had been a misunderstanding. But this time, I let it ring. Once, twice, 3 times. Then it stopped. I kept sipping my coffee like nothing had happened. 10 minutes later, the phone rang again. This time, it was Lena. I didn't answer that either. Soon after, a message came from Max. "Mom, please answer. We need to talk." I deleted it without replying. At 2 o'clock that afternoon, I put on my shoes and went for a walk. I hadn't done that in months without a reason, without an errand, without rushing to fix someone else's problem. This walk was just for me. Everything I did before was always for them. A trip to the bank meant sending money. A stop at the grocery store meant filling their needs. The pharmacy visits were always for Lena's medication. But that day, I walked simply because I wanted to. I passed the park where I used to take Max when he was little. I remembered the boy who wrapped his arms around me and told me I was the best mom in the world. Somewhere along the way, that boy turned into a man who treated me like a bank account with emotions. When did I mix love with money? When did I start believing I had to pay to stay important in my own son's life? I eventually found myself standing in front of the bank, the same bank where I had made transfer after transfer without hesitation. Through the glass, the branch manager, Mr. Klein, noticed me and waved. I had known him for years. He had handled every payment I sent to Max and Lena. He had watched my balance shrink month after month while theirs grew. I went straight to his office. "Mr. Klein," I said, "I need to cancel all the automatic transfers." He looked genuinely surprised. For 3 years, those payments had gone out like clockwork. "Are you sure, Mrs. Richter?" he asked. Did something happen? His concern felt real, more real than anything my son had shown me in a long time. "What happened," I said calmly, "is that I finally opened my eyes. I want everything canceled, and I want to know how to secure my accounts. No one else should have access to my money. As he worked on the cancellations, my phone kept ringing. Max, then Lena, then Max again. It was like they sensed their financial safety net slipping away. I turned my phone off completely. When Mr. Klein handed me the paperwork, he paused. "Mrs. Richter," he said gently, "I hope you know that over the years I've seen how generous you've been with your family. For once, someone saw me and meant it."
Please tell me you're not being pressured into making these changes, Mr. Klein said kindly. His words stayed with me. This man, who only knew me through paperwork and numbers, showed more concern for my well-being than my own son had in months. "I'm not being pressured at all," I told him. For the first time, I've stopped pressuring myself. When I left the bank, I felt unexpectedly light, like I had set down a heavy weight I'd been carrying for years. My money was finally mine again. I no longer felt tied to people who treated me like a source of funds instead of a human being. On the walk home, I thought about everything I had given up for Max and Lena, the trips I never took so I could save for them, the friends I drifted away from because I was always on call for their problems, the hobbies I dropped because spending on myself felt selfish when they might need something. When I reached my house, my heart sank. 3 cars were parked outside, Max's, Lena's, and one I didn't recognize. I saw movement through the windows. They still had keys. I had given them those keys because I trusted them, because I believed they would someday care for me the way I had cared for them. I took a deep breath before opening the door. I knew this moment mattered. This was the first real test of the new life I had chosen. Inside, the scene stopped me cold. Max was sitting on my sofa, his head buried in his hands. Lena paced back and forth like she was trapped. At my dining table sat an older man I didn't know, sorting through papers. My papers? My private documents. "What is going on here?" I asked, my voice stronger than I expected. They all turned to look at me, as if I was the stranger in my own home. Lena spoke first, her voice tight with panic, the same tone she used on the phone. "Renata, thank God you're here," she said. "We need to talk." "Mr. Fisher is from the law firm we spoke with about your situation," Lena said. "My situation?" The words left my mouth calmly, even though I felt anything but calm. "What situation? I'm doing just fine." Max finally looked up. The warmth I once knew in his eyes was gone, replaced by panic. "Mom, we went to the bank. They told us you canceled all the transfers. Mr. Klein also said you blocked our access to your accounts. We don't understand why you'd do that." Then the man stepped forward. He looked to be in his 50s, wearing a gray suit and a practiced smile that made me uneasy. "Mrs. Richter, I'm Mr. Fisher, a family law attorney. Your children are concerned about your mental well-being and asked me to review what's going on." I didn't take his hand. Instead, I walked to the dining table and gathered the papers he had been flipping through. "These are my personal documents," I said firmly. "You have no right to touch them without my permission." "Mom," Max cut in, using that patronizing tone he'd mastered over the years. "We're worried about you. Your behavior hasn't been normal. You suddenly cut us off financially. You stopped answering our calls. We think you may need professional help." Lena moved closer and tried to hold my hand, her voice soft and rehearsed. "Renata, sweetheart, you've been under so much stress. Being alone can be hard. At your age, moments of confusion happen more often than you realize." The word confusion rang in my ears. That's when everything became clear. This wasn't about concern. It wasn't about my well-being. They had brought a lawyer to question my sanity, to take control of my life and my money, control of my finances. The same woman who once told me only special people were invited to their wedding was now talking to me like I was a helpless, confused old woman. "I am not confused," I said firmly. My voice was steady, and it stopped everyone in the room. I am clearer than I've been in years, and all of you are leaving my house right now." Mr. Fisher stepped in with that smooth, practiced tone lawyers use when they want to sound calm and reasonable. "Mrs. Richter, I understand this feels overwhelming, but if your children believe your ability to manage money is impaired, they do have the right to step in. They've documented several concerning behaviors." "Concerning behaviors?" A rough laugh escaped me, sharp, almost bitter. "Like what? Deciding my money belongs to me? Deciding I won't keep supporting two grown adults who treat me with no respect?" Lena jumped to her feet, clearly offended. "We never treated you badly. You're part of our family, and everything you have will be ours one day anyway. We're just helping things move along." And there it was. The truth. Plain and ugly. In their minds, I was already gone. They weren't worried about me. They were just collecting their inheritance early. It didn't matter whether I had decades left or just a few years. To them, I was nothing more than a walking bank account that had suddenly become inconvenient. "Out," I said, pointing to the door. "All three of you, leave my house." Max stood up, his face tight with anger, like a child who'd been told no. "Mom, you can't just do this. We have responsibilities. The rent, the car payments, the credit card you co-signed. You can't cut us off overnight." "I can't?" My voice rose for the first time that day. "Who says I can't?" I shot back. "For years, I paid rent for a place that wasn't mine. I stocked food in a home where I wasn't welcome. I gave and gave while being treated like I didn't matter. And I'm done. I had funded a life where I clearly didn't belong." Mr. Fisher opened his briefcase and placed a folder on my table. "Mrs. Richter, we've prepared some paperwork to make this transition easier. A power of attorney that would allow Max and Lena to manage your finances more efficiently. It would only be temporary, until you're feeling better." I picked up the folder. I didn't open it. I dropped it straight into the trash. "The only transition happening here," I said calmly, "is yours." Toward the front door. Lena burst into tears, but they weren't tears of heartbreak. They were tears of frustration and anger that she could no longer hide. "You can't do this to us, Renata," she cried. "We were counting on you. We made plans because we believed you'd support us. We bought things. We took on expenses knowing you'd be there." "Expenses based on my money," I replied. "Not on my happiness, not on my well-being, and certainly not on my presence in your lives. Just my wallet." "And now that I've decided to spend my money on myself," I continued, "I'm suddenly a confused old woman who needs someone else to take control." Max stepped toward me, but I moved back. The child who once ran to me after bad dreams was gone. Standing in front of me was a 35-year-old man who saw his mother as a barrier between himself and an easy life funded by someone else. "Mom, we made mistakes," he said, trying to sound sorry. "The wedding was a misunderstanding. Lena was stressed. I was under pressure. We can fix this. If you just start being reasonable again." "Reasonable?" The word felt bitter. "Being reasonable," I said, "means continuing to pay for your life while being treated like a stranger. It means pretending it didn't hurt to be shut out of the most important day of my only son's life." Mr. Fisher quietly began gathering his papers, with the calm efficiency of someone used to being turned down. "Mrs. Richter," Mr. Fisher said, "this isn't over. Your family has legal options. If a court decides your choices are being influenced by mental health issues, a judge could appoint a guardian to manage your affairs." His words landed hard. This wasn't just pressure or manipulation anymore. It was a real legal threat. They were trying to take control of my life by questioning my ability to think clearly. I looked him straight in the eyes. "Mr. Fisher," I said evenly, "I suggest you look into my history before making threats. I'm a 71-year-old woman who has handled her finances responsibly for over 40 years. I raised my son alone after my husband passed away. I worked honestly until retirement. And until last week, I financially supported two perfectly capable adults. Lena stopped crying. The softness disappeared from her face, replaced by something cold and sharp. This won't end here, Renata. We have rights. And we have lawyers too. Good, I replied. Hire as many as you want. With your own money. Mine will no longer be used to fund your legal games. The three of them walked toward the door, clearly shaken, clearly not used to being told no. Before leaving, Max turned back. Mom, this is going to end badly for you. You'll be alone, with no one to take care of you when you really need it. I felt a deep sadness, but also a calm clarity. Max, I said quietly, I've already been alone. The difference now is that it's by my choice, not because you ignored me. I closed the door behind them and stood in my living room, wrapped in the most peaceful silence I had felt in years. It was the sound of freedom. That night, I couldn't sleep, not because of regret or sorrow, but because my mind was finally awake. That afternoon, I went to the beauty salon for the first time in over a year. I had canceled so many appointments before, always because Max or Lena had an emergency, or because the money I saved for myself suddenly became theirs. Mrs. Richter, my longtime stylist, Cynthia, exclaimed, "What a surprise! I thought you'd forgotten about us." I didn't forget, I smiled. I just forgot that I deserve care too. I treated myself fully. A haircut, color, manicure, and pedicure. For the first time in years, I spent money on myself without guilt. As Cynthia worked, she chatted about her life, her kids, her dreams. It felt wonderful to have a conversation that didn't revolve around Max and Lena's problems. When she finished, she stepped back and smiled. "You look beautiful, Mrs. Richter. But more than that, you look free. Did something good happen?" "Yes," I said softly. I finally learned how to choose myself. To say no. When I arrived home that afternoon, I noticed a car parked in front of my house that I didn't recognize. For a brief moment, my heart jumped. I worried Max and Lena might have returned, possibly with more pressure. But as I got closer, I saw an older woman sitting quietly on my porch steps. "Mrs. Richter?" she asked as I stepped out of my car. "Yes, that's me," I replied. "Can I help you?" "My name is Eleanor Brooks," she said warmly. "I live next door. We've been neighbors for years, but we never really talked. Yesterday, I heard raised voices coming from your house, and I got concerned. I just wanted to check if you're okay." Her kindness caught me off guard. Here was someone who barely knew me, yet showed more care than my own family had in a long time. "Please, come in," I said. "I'll make us some coffee, and I'll tell you a story you probably won't believe." As I brewed the coffee, I shared everything with her. Eleanor listened quietly, never interrupting, just nodding now and then. When I finished, her eyes were wet with tears. "Mrs. Richter," she said gently, "you did the right thing. I went through something very similar with my daughter 5 years ago. I thought it was my duty to support her, even as an adult. I believed she wouldn't love me if I stopped giving her money." "What happened?" I asked. "I finally stopped," she said. "Once I realized she only called when she needed something. At first, it was awful. She blamed me, guilted me, even tried emotional pressure. But after 6 months, she called and truly apologized. Today, we have a real relationship, one based on love, not money." Her words filled me with quiet hope and reassured me that I had chosen the right path. "Do you think Max and Lena will ever understand?" I asked. Eleanor paused before answering. "Maybe they will, maybe they won't. But that's no longer your responsibility, Mrs. Richter. Your responsibility now is to take care of yourself." And for the first time, I truly believed that was enough. To live your own life. That night, for the first time in 3 years, I went to bed without worrying about whether Max and Lena had enough money for rent, food, or their whims. I went to bed thinking about myself, my plans, my future. And I slept more peacefully than I had in years. The next morning, at 8 a.m., Ethan and Mr. Summer arrived to change all the locks and install the security system. While they worked, my phone kept ringing from unknown numbers. Lena was still trying to reach me from different phones, but I had learned a new skill: selectively ignoring calls that didn't serve me. "Mrs. Richter," Ethan said as he installed the cameras, "this system will give you complete peace of mind. You can check from your phone who's at your house, even when you're away. And if someone enters without permission, the police are automatically alerted." I couldn't help but notice the irony. I was installing a security system to protect myself from my own son, but it didn't sting as it would have before. Now, it was simply a practical step to protect my newfound peace. While they worked, I decided to do something I hadn't done in years: call my sister Diana in Chicago. We had grown distant because every conversation had become a report on Max and Lena, their successes, my financial help, my pride in supporting them. I realized our chats had been disguised as family news, but were really just financial updates. "Renata?" Diana answered, surprised. "Sister, how are you? It's been months." "I'm good, Diana. Better than good. I'm calling to tell you that I've finally come to my senses." I told her the whole story. Everything from the secret wedding, the humiliation, to the moment I decided to take back control of my life. Adrenaline from finally taking my life back. I lay awake, not from fear, but from focus. I planned my next steps carefully, like someone preparing for a serious challenge. If Max and Lena wanted a fight, I wouldn't respond with emotion. I would respond with clarity and strategy. By 6 o'clock the next morning, I was dressed and ready. My first stop was the office of Mr. Weber, an attorney I had worked with years earlier while handling my late husband's will. Unlike the lawyer Max and Lena had brought into my home, Mr. Weber had a strong reputation and specialized in protecting older adults. As I explained everything, he listened closely. Then he said something that stopped me. "What your children attempted yesterday is more common than people realize," he told me. "It's called elder financial abuse, and it is a federal crime. Entering your home without permission and reviewing your personal documents is also a serious violation." His words brought both relief and concern. Relief, because they confirmed I wasn't imagining things. What I experienced was real and wrong. Concern, because I now understood how serious the situation truly was. "We need to document everything," Mr. Weber continued. "Every transfer, every gift, every time you were pressured for money. We'll also update your will to protect your assets from any future attempts to control you." We spent 3 hours reviewing my records. When he added up the total, $33,400 in just 3 years, he let out a low whistle. "Mrs. Richter," he said gently, "this money could have supported a comfortable retirement, travel, enjoyment. Instead, it fully funded the lives of 2 adults who couldn't even show you the respect of inviting you to their wedding." When I left his office, I didn't feel defeated. I felt prepared. I had a clear plan. First, I would change every lock on my house. Second, I would install a security system with cameras to protect myself from unexpected visits. Third, I would open a new bank account. Account at a completely different bank, one they had no connection to. And fourth, I would finally start living the life I had put on hold for years. My next stop was the hardware store. The owner, Mr. Summer, had known me for a long time. I was always there buying supplies to fix something in Max and Lena's apartment. "This time, it must be another emergency with your son," he said kindly, like someone who had quietly watched me give too much for too long. "No," I replied. "This time it's for my own house. I need all the locks changed, and I want the best ones you have." He raised his eyebrows but didn't question me. As I was choosing the locks, his son Ethan walked in. He specialized in installing security systems. It felt like perfect timing. "Ethan," I said, "I also want a full camera system installed, inside and outside. Price isn't an issue." They scheduled everything for the next day. While they were writing up the order, my phone rang. It was an unfamiliar number. I answered, already knowing who it would be. "Renata, it's Lena," she said quickly. She was calling from someone else's phone since I had blocked her number. "Please don't hang up. Let's talk like adults." "Go ahead," I said, flat and calm. "I know you're upset about the wedding," she continued. "It was a mistake. Max and I talked, and we want to fix this. Maybe we could have a special dinner to celebrate the wedding. Just with you. At your house. Like we used to. We can cook together." The manipulation was so obvious it almost made me smile. "Lena," I asked calmly, "how much rent do you owe right now?" There was a long pause. "Well, 2 months," she admitted. $1,000 total, but that's not why I'm calling. We really miss you." "Do you miss me?" I asked. "Or do you miss my money?" Another pause. Then, surprisingly, honesty. "Both," she said. "I won't lie. Yes, we need help." That single sentence told me everything I needed to know. Your financial help, but we love you too. You matter to us. "If I truly matter," I said calmly, "why wasn't I important enough to be invited to your wedding? Why do I only hear from you when money is involved? When was the last time you called just to ask how I was doing?" Silence. We both knew the answer. "Lena," I continued, "I'm only going to say this once. For 3 years, you treated me like a bank account with emotions. You used me, you ignored me, you embarrassed me, and in the end, you hurt me in the worst way possible. Now that the money is gone, you suddenly remember you love me." "Renata, please." "There is no please," I said, cutting her off. "You made your choice the moment you decided I wasn't special enough to be at your wedding. Now, I'm making mine." I ended the call and turned my phone off. I didn't want anything interrupting my day of freedom. Visit with the lawyer and my decision to stop the financial support. Diana listened quietly the entire time. When I finished, her response caught me off guard. "Renata," she said gently, "it was about time. Every time we talked, it hurt my heart to hear you talk about how much money you gave them, as if love could be counted in dollars. I wanted to say something for years, but I didn't know how." "What did you want to tell me?" I asked. "That Max never spoke about you with affection when I saw him at family gatherings," she replied honestly. "It was always, 'My mom paid for this,' or 'My mom bought that.' Never, 'I miss my mom,' or 'I love my mom.' It was like you were a service provider, not a person." Her words stung, but it was the kind of pain that heals, like cleaning a wound. It hurts, but it's necessary. "And there's something else," Diana continued. "Lena always talked about you in the future tense. She'd say things like, 'When Renata isn't around anymore, we'll remodel the house,' or 'When we inherit, we'll invest in the business.' It was as if they were waiting for you to be gone so they could really live." That realization hit me hard. They didn't just see me as a source of money. They saw me as a temporary obstacle standing between them and what they believed was already theirs. While I was trying to keep them happy, they were planning a future without me in it. After the call ended, I sat alone in my kitchen, letting everything sink in. A loving marriage, 35 years of raising my son on my own after my husband passed. And then 3 years of financially supporting 2 adults who viewed me as an inconvenience tied to a bank account. The doorbell rang. On my new camera screen, I saw Eleanor standing there, holding a mug. I opened the door and she handed me a cup of freshly brewed coffee. "I thought you might need some company after what you shared yesterday," she said with that warm, sincere smile I was quickly learning to appreciate. We sat together in my living room and Eleanor began telling me more about her own journey, how rebuilding her life after setting boundaries had been hard, but also deeply rewarding. And for the first time in a long while, I didn't feel alone. Own experience. "My daughter said the same things Lena says to you," Eleanor told me. "You're like a second mom to me. You're special. One day everything will be ours anyway." Those lines aren't spontaneous, Mrs. Richter. They're learned. I smiled faintly. "Do you think there's an actual handbook for this?" I asked, half joking. "Not an official one," she replied, "but it feels like everyone follows the same script. Step 1, make her feel needed. Step 2, create constant money problems. Step 3, when she pushes back, question her mental health." We laughed together, but it was a sad kind of laughter, painful and relieving at the same time. It was shocking how familiar the pattern was, and how long it had taken us to see it. "Did you ever feel guilty after you stopped helping financially?" I asked her. "Every single day for the first 3 months," Eleanor said honestly. "But then I started noticing changes. My daughter got a second job. Her husband stopped golfing every weekend and started working extra hours. They learned to live within their means. And most importantly, they learned that I was a person, not a resource." That afternoon, I made another decision, one I had postponed for years. I went to visit my husband's grave. I had always found excuses not to go. Max needed something. Lena had an emergency. The taxi money could be better used elsewhere. There was always a reason. The cemetery was calm and peaceful. Robert's grave looked a little neglected, proof of how long it had been since I last visited. I sat down on the grass beside his headstone and spoke to him as if he were right there with me. "Robert, my love," I said softly, "I think I lost myself for a while. After you passed, I poured everything into Max. I wanted to be the best mother possible. I thought if I gave enough, loved enough, sacrificed enough, I could make up for the father he lost." I paused, feeling the weight of the truth. But somewhere along the way, I forgot about myself. And saying those words out loud felt like the beginning of healing. Forgot to be myself. A soft breeze passed through the cemetery, and for a brief moment, it felt like Robert was listening. "Our son has become someone I barely recognize," I said quietly. "Or maybe he's always been this way, and I chose not to see it. And his wife, well, you know how she is. The money you left so I could live peacefully, I used it to take care of them. But not anymore, my love. I've finally learned." I cleaned his grave, replaced the dried flowers with fresh ones, and stayed there for another hour, simply enjoying the calm. For the first time in years, I wasn't rushing home to fix another crisis for Max and Lena. When I returned home, my heart skipped again. 3 cars were parked in front of my house. Once more. But this time, I was ready. I checked the cameras from my phone. It was Max and Lena again, along with 2 people I didn't recognize. They looked upset, talking loudly and pointing toward my house. I stayed in my car. Instead, I called my lawyer. "Mr. Weber," I said calmly. "They're back, and they've brought others with them. What should I do?" "Do not get out of the car, Mrs. Richter," he replied firmly. "I'm on my way, and I'm calling the police. After our meeting yesterday, I requested a temporary restraining order. They are not allowed on your property." Within minutes, Mr. Weber arrived, followed by 2 police cars. From a distance, I watched officers speak to Max and Lena. I saw my son waving his arms angrily. I saw Lena crying again. But this time, her tears didn't affect me. One of the officers walked over to my car. "Ma'am, you can step out now," he said kindly. "Your visitors will be leaving immediately." As I got out, Max yelled from the street, his voice full of anger. "Mom, this is ridiculous. We're your family. You can't call the police on your own son." I looked at him calmly, calmer than I ever thought possible. "Max," I said evenly, "family doesn't show up uninvited, bring strangers, and try to take control of someone's life. Family doesn't ignore boundaries. And today," I added softly, "I'm choosing peace." The officers escorted them away. The street grew quiet again. I walked into my house, closed the door, and felt something settle inside me. Not sadness, not fear, but strength. For the first time in a very long life of giving, I finally felt protected. And this time, I protected myself. Surprised even me. "Family doesn't threaten lawsuits over mental incompetence," I said steadily. "Family doesn't enter someone's home without permission, and family doesn't treat their mother like a bank." From across the street, Lena shouted, "You're going to pay us what you owe. We have bills you co-signed for. You can't just abandon us like this." Before I could respond, Mr. Weber stepped forward. "Any future communication must go through my office," he said firmly. "And I suggest you speak with your own attorney before making demands. My client has full records of every payment she made voluntarily over the past 3 years." I watched them drive away, frustrated, defeated, but not finished. I knew the situation wasn't completely over. But for the first time since all of this began, I felt steady. I wasn't alone anymore. I had legal protection. I had Eleanor's support. And most importantly, I finally had clarity. That evening, Eleanor invited me over for dinner. Her daughter happened to be visiting, and for the first time in a long while, I saw what a healthy family dynamic actually looked like. They spoke kindly to each other. They listened. They laughed. And not once did money come up. I wanted that kind of relationship with Max. I admitted quietly after her daughter left. "Maybe you still can," Eleanor said gently. "But first, he has to learn that you're a person who deserves respect, not just financial support." For the first time in weeks, I went to bed feeling hopeful. The next few days were unusually calm. Through my security cameras, I noticed Max and Lena driving past my house several times a day. Sometimes they slowed down. Sometimes they stopped for a moment before moving on. They were watching. But I wasn't afraid anymore. For several minutes, they would stay nearby and then leave, never staying too long. It felt deliberate, like they were watching my habits and waiting for the right chance to act again. Mr. Weber had already warned me this might happen. He told me to write down every visit, including the date and time, so I kept a careful record of everything. He said their behavior would actually help us. Each time they showed up after being told to stay away, it made our case for a permanent restraining order stronger. That Friday morning started peacefully. I was having breakfast when the doorbell rang. I checked the cameras and saw a young woman standing outside. She was neatly dressed, holding a folder, and smiling politely. I didn't recognize her, but her body language told me this wasn't a friendly visit. When I opened the door, she greeted me by name. She said she was a social investigator from the Office of Senior Services and explained that they had received a report claiming I might be at risk. According to her, they needed to do a wellness check. My heart dropped. Max and Lena had taken things further. This was no longer about letters from private lawyers. They had now brought a government office into it. I asked to see her identification, doing my best to stay calm. She showed me an official ID that appeared legitimate and introduced herself as Mrs. Schmidt, a social worker. She then asked if she could come inside to talk. I knew refusing would only make things worse, so I let her in. She sat down in my living room, opened her folder, and began reading from a form. She said they had received reports claiming I had suddenly changed how I handled my finances, cut off contact with my family, and become overly suspicious by installing unnecessary security systems. They were also told that I had refused medical and legal assistance. The wording was clearly designed to paint me as a confused, unstable old woman. Every sentence felt intentional. I could almost see Lena behind it all. She had always known how to twist language to get her way. I took a breath and spoke as calmly as I could. I told Ms. Schmidt that I wanted to contact my lawyer before answering any questions. She replied that this wasn't a legal investigation, just a wellness check, and said that if I had nothing to hide, speaking with her shouldn't be an issue. That phrase made my blood boil. It was the same excuse people use when they cross boundaries. The idea that innocence means giving up your privacy is deeply wrong. I told her clearly that I was calling my lawyer. She could wait or return another day, but I would not answer anything without legal counsel present. I contacted Mr. Weber and he arrived within 20 minutes. The moment he walked in and saw the social worker, his tone changed. After checking her identification, he told her that unless she had a court order, she had no authority to question his client. He made it clear that any investigation without legal grounds could be considered harassment. Ms. Schmidt responded, but her confidence was gone. She said they had received reports from concerned family members and that it was their responsibility to follow up. Mr. Weber calmly asked which family she meant. The same people who tried to pressure his client into signing a power of attorney without legal advice, the same ones who entered her home without permission and went through private papers, the same ones who shut her out of family events while continuing to use her money. He then placed a folder on the table. Inside was detailed proof of the financial and emotional mistreatment my client had endured. Over 3 years, $33,400 had been withdrawn from her accounts. She had faced constant social exclusion and emotional manipulation. If anyone needed investigating, it certainly wasn't my client. Mrs. Schmidt flipped through the documents, growing increasingly uncomfortable. It was clear that what she had been told did not match the reality in front of her. Finally, she asked, "Mrs. Richter, can you explain why you suddenly stopped financially supporting your son?" I replied calmly, "Because I realized they were taking advantage of me. To them, I wasn't a mother. I was a bank account. I was tired of funding lives for people who treated me as an obstacle." "But don't you feel it's your responsibility to help your family?" she pressed. Her question angered me. "Miss Schmidt, my responsibility as a mother was to raise my son until he became an adult, to educate him, and to give him the tools to live independently. My son is 35, married, and fully capable of supporting himself. Paying for his adult life is not my responsibility. It's my choice. And I've chosen not to do it anymore." Mr. Weber added firmly, "Miss Schmidt, would you consider it normal for a 35-year-old adult to be unable to pay rent without help from his 71-year-old mother?" Mrs. Schmidt didn't answer immediately. I could see she was reassessing everything. After a pause, she asked, "Mrs. Richter, do you manage your own finances completely?" "Yes," I said. "I can show you my bank statements, investments, and taxes. Everything is up to date and in order. I live independently. I keep my house in order, take care of myself, drive my own car, and maintain healthy relationships with my neighbors." "Do you take any medication?" she asked. "Just vitamins, and occasionally aspirin. I have no medical conditions that require treatment," I replied. Mr. Weber added, "My client?" Mr. Weber explained that I had recently gone through thorough medical evaluations as part of our legal preparations. He stated clearly that I was in excellent mental and physical health. Mrs. Schmidt quietly closed her folder. She then said that based on our conversation and the documents she had reviewed, she saw no signs that I was at risk or needed any kind of intervention. With that, She informed me the case would be closed. After she left, Mr. Weber and I sat in silence for a few moments. Then he spoke. He told me this situation was likely to get worse. Max and Lena, he explained, were spending money they didn't have to hire professionals in an attempt to have me declared incompetent. I asked if that meant they were desperate. He said yes, completely. I wanted to know what else they could possibly do. He explained that they could file a legal case claiming incompetence. It would be costly and difficult to win, but if they found a judge willing to listen and a psychiatrist ready to support their claims, a court-appointed guardian could be assigned. The idea terrified me. That would mean losing control over my own finances. Mr. Weber reassured me. He said they could try, but the evidence clearly showed I was fully capable and that their actions were driven by greed, not genuine concern. Later that afternoon, I called my sister Diana to let everything out. After listening, she pointed out how far they were willing to go for money. She said they were risking family bonds, wasting money on lawyers and doctors, and ruining their own reputations, all just to get access to my finances again. Her words hit hard. Max and Lena had shown exactly who they were. There was no going back. Any hope of real reconciliation was gone. To them, I realized, I had never truly been a mother or a respected mother-in-law. I had simply been a source of money. That truth was painful, but it was also freeing. I no longer questioned my choices. I no longer felt guilt or doubt about protecting myself. I used to feel guilty for protecting myself. They had shown me, loud and clear, that my emotional and physical well-being mattered less to them than my money. That evening, Eleanor came over with a surprise. She had invited some friends from her garden club to meet me. "Renate," she said, "these are my friends. Cynthia, who you already know from the salon, Maria, Carmen, and Alfreda. We've all faced similar struggles with difficult family members." We spent the evening sharing our stories. Maria had to set boundaries with a brother who always asked for money. Carmen had ended her relationship with a daughter who only visited when she needed cash. Alfreda had even changed her will after realizing her grandchildren saw her as their personal retirement plan. When it was my turn, I admitted something I'd been carrying for a long time. What hurt me most wasn't the money I lost. It was realizing that the love I thought I had was never real. Alfreda, with the calm wisdom of her 80 years, said, "True love can't be bought or sold. If you had to pay for it, it wasn't real love." Her words hit me right in the heart. She was right. I hadn't bought love. I had bought attention. I had invested in an illusion. "I've realized something," I told my new friends. "Being lonely, surrounded by people who don't love you, is far worse than being alone by yourself. At least when I'm alone now, I'm in good company." Everyone laughed, and we raised our glasses to our newfound wisdom. Later that night, after my friends had gone, I sat in my garden and looked up at the stars. They seemed brighter than ever, or maybe I was just seeing them more clearly. For the first time as an adult, I was completely independent financially. I owed nothing to anyone but myself, and instead of feeling scared, I felt excited. I could travel whenever I wanted. I could remodel my house. I could buy the clothes I liked. I could live life exactly the way I wanted. I could donate to causes that truly mattered to me. I could invest in my own future instead of funding the lives of people who never appreciated it. Freedom felt like hope. And for the first time in years, I actually wanted to think about what came next. A month after my visit with the psychiatrist, I believed the worst was finally behind me. Life had settled into a peaceful rhythm. I enjoyed quiet breakfasts with the newspaper. I worked in my garden. I had lunch with Eleanor or one of my new friends. And in the afternoons, I returned to things I had abandoned long ago. I started painting again, something I once loved deeply before I became Max and Lena's personal banker. Then, one Thursday morning, As I was painting flowers on my new easel, Mr. Weber arrived at my door. One look at his face made my stomach drop. "Renate, we need to talk," he said. "Max and Lena have filed a formal case in family court. They are claiming you're mentally unfit and are asking for a legal guardian to be assigned." "I don't have any unpaid medical bills or hoarded medications," I said firmly. "I know, Renate," Mr. Weber replied, "but they've created what looks like convincing evidence. They even included a statement from Dr. Lehman, who says you refused a psychiatric evaluation. They're claiming that refusal proves mental decline." I felt the manipulation in every word. They had turned my decision to protect myself into proof that I was mentally unfit. My instinct to safeguard my independence was now being used against me. "Who are the 3 witnesses?" I asked. Mr. Weber checked his papers. "Lena, a neighbor named Mr. Davis, and someone claiming to be your pharmacist, Mr. Green." Mr. Davis lived across the street. He'd never liked me because my friend sometimes parked in front of his house. Mr. Green, my pharmacist, had always been professional. So why was he involved? "I need to speak with Mr. Green," I told Mr. Weber. "Something isn't right." That afternoon, we went to the pharmacy. Mr. Green looked surprised and uneasy. "Mrs. Richter, it's good to see you," he said nervously. "Mr. Green, I was told you signed a statement claiming I behave erratically with my medications. Can you explain?" He flushed red. "Mrs. Richter, your daughter-in-law came a few weeks ago asking about your medications. She said she was worried because you were acting strangely." "And what did you tell her?" I asked. "I explained that you only buy vitamins and occasional aspirin and that you don't have regular prescriptions, but she insisted that meant you weren't taking proper care of your health." Mr. Weber stepped in. "Mr. Green, did you sign a paper?" "Yes." She brought a document asking me to confirm that Mrs. Richter had irregular medication purchases. He thought it was for health insurance or some routine paperwork. He had no idea it would be used in a lawsuit. My own pharmacist had been misled into signing something he didn't fully understand. Lena's manipulation seemed endless. "Mr. Green," I said calmly, "I need you to write a statement explaining exactly what happened and to clearly confirm that I have no issues with my medications." "Of course, Mrs. Richter," he replied. "I'm truly sorry for this misunderstanding." After leaving the pharmacy, Mr. Weber and I went to speak with Mr. Davis. When he opened the door, his hostility was obvious. "What do you want?" he snapped. Mr. Weber said, "We understand you signed a statement about my client's behavior." "Yes, I did," he replied sharply. "That woman is unstable. She's been acting strangely for weeks." "Can you be specific?" Mr. Weber asked. "She installed cameras like she's living in a war zone. She has strangers coming and going all the time, and I've heard her yelling at her family in the street." I suddenly understood how everything had been twisted. The cameras were for my safety. The so-called strangers were my new friends. And the yelling was me, standing up for myself when Max and Lena showed up uninvited. "Mr. Davis," I said, "do you know why I installed those cameras?" "No, and I don't care," he replied. "To protect myself from my son and daughter-in-law, who entered my home without permission and threatened me." He laughed coldly. "That's exactly what a crazy person would say." There was no reasoning with him. His statement was built on shallow observations and cruel assumptions. That evening, Mr. Weber and I sat down to plan our defense. "Renate," he said, "we need our own psychiatric evaluation. I have a colleague, Dr. Moore. She specializes in assessing mental capacity and can officially confirm that you are fully competent." I nodded, but fear crept in anyway. "What if Max and Lena have influenced the judge?" I asked. "What if none of this matters because they've already decided my fate?" "Renate," Mr. Weber said gently, "the legal system isn't perfect, but it isn't completely broken either. We have strong proof of your mental ability, and we can clearly show their financial motives. We're going to fight this." The next day, I went to see Dr. Moore. She was in her 50s with warm eyes that missed nothing. "Mrs. Richter," she said, "I'll be asking you a series of questions and giving you a few tests to assess your mental capacity. Take your time and just be honest." For 2 hours, she evaluated me. She asked about my memory, my reasoning skills, my understanding of finances, and my emotional well-being. I completed cognitive exercises and solved math and logic problems. At the end, she smiled. "Mrs. Richter, your results are well above average for your age. You are not only mentally capable, your cognitive health is excellent." I felt a wave of relief. "Doctor," I asked, "why would my own family do this?" "Based on everything you've shared and the documents I reviewed," she said, "this appears to be a clear case of elder financial exploitation. Sadly, it happens far more often than people realize." I left her office feeling both comforted and heartbroken. Having my mental health confirmed was reassuring, but it also meant the lawsuit was very real and the fight ahead was unavoidable. That afternoon, Eleanor called an urgent meeting with our garden club friends. When I told them about the case, the room filled with disbelief and anger. "Renate," Maria said firmly, "we'll testify for you. We've spent weeks with you. Anyone can see how well you're doing." "Better than well," Cynthia added. "You're sharper and stronger than many women half your age." Then Elfrida took my hands, her voice calm and steady with 80 years of wisdom. "My dear," she said, "what your children are doing is nothing new. For generations, greedy children have tried to label their parents as unfit just to take their money. But you have something many victims never had: proper documentation, legal support, and friends willing to testify." Elfrida's words gave me hope. I wasn't facing this alone. I had an army of strong women who had seen my transformation firsthand. "You know what's the saddest part of all this?" I said. "Max and Lena are willing to destroy any chance of reconciliation just for money. Even if I wanted to forgive everything, there's no going back." "Maybe that's for the best," Cynthia replied. "Now you know exactly who they are, and you can act accordingly." That night, for the first time since this nightmare began, I truly cried. Not out of sadness, but out of grief. I said goodbye to the son I thought I had, to the dream of a loving family, and to the illusion that unconditional love could be bought or expected. But something new also rose inside me. An iron determination not to let anyone strip me of my money, my dignity, or my freedom. The war had begun, and I was ready to fight. The trial came 3 weeks later. I woke early, dressed in my best black suit, and looked in the mirror with a resolve I had never felt before. Today, not only my mental capacity would be judged, but also my dignity, my right to live free from abuse, and my value beyond my bank account. Mr. Weber arrived at 7 a.m. for one final strategy session. "Renate," he said, "remember, the burden of proof is on them. They have to prove you're incompetent. We only need to show that you're not." "And what if the judge is biased?" I asked. "Judge Miller has a reputation for fairness," he reassured me. "He doesn't automatically side with families. He's committed to protecting the rights of the elderly." We arrived at the courthouse at 9 a.m. In the hallway, I saw Max, looking sharp in a new suit. Max wore a new suit, probably bought just for the occasion. Lena dressed in black, as if attending a funeral. Maybe she was. Mourning the family we once had. When our eyes met, Max quickly looked away, but Lena held mine with a cold, unflinching stare, making it clear this was just business for her. Their lawyer was an older, polished man, confident in a way that comes from winning cases like this before. From the moment he began his opening statement, his strategy was obvious. Paint me as a confused old woman, easily manipulated by strangers who had turned against her loving family. "Your Honor," he said solemnly, Mrs. Renate Richter has shown a clear decline in recent months. She has cut off all financial support to her family without explanation. She has installed unnecessary security systems out of paranoia, and she has isolated herself under the influence of neighbors and lawyers who are taking advantage of her vulnerable state. Every word was carefully chosen to turn my self-protection into evidence of dementia and my independence into manipulation. Then came their witnesses. Lena was first. Her performance was flawless, Oscar-worthy even. She wept as she described how I had changed, how I had become hostile and paranoid, how I had isolated myself from the family that loved me. "Your Honor," she said, her voice trembling, "Renate has always been like a second mother to me. Seeing her mental decline has been devastating. We only want her to get the care she needs." Lies wrapped in tears. But when Mr. Weber began cross-examining her, the cracks started to show. "Mrs. Schuster," he said calmly, "can you tell the court when was the last time you—" "Mrs. Schuster," Mr. Weber asked, "when was the last time you called my client without asking for money?" Lena hesitated. "Well, we always talked about many things. Can you give the court a specific date?" "I don't remember exact dates," she stammered. "Is it true that you and your husband got married without inviting my client?" "It was a very small ceremony," she replied. "Is it true that when my client asked about the wedding, you told her only special people were invited?" Her face turned red. Those words were taken out of context. "And what would be the right context?" Mr. Weber asked. "To tell your mother-in-law she isn't a special person?" She couldn't answer. Next, Max took the stand. Watching him swear to tell the truth while preparing to lie about my mental health was one of the most painful moments of my life. This was the boy I had raised alone, the one I had devoted my life to. "My mom has always been generous with us," he testified, "but lately, she's become erratic and irrational. We believe she is being influenced by people taking advantage of her." When Mr. Weber began cross-examining him, the cracks appeared immediately. "Mr. Richter, how much money have you received from your mother in the last 3 years?" "I don't know the exact amount," he replied. "Does $33,400 sound about right?" "Maybe she's always been generous," he muttered. "And how many times have you visited your mother without asking for money?" Silence. "Is it true that you and your wife broke into my client's home without permission and went through her private documents?" "We were worried about her," he said weakly. "Is it true you brought a lawyer to pressure her into signing a power of attorney?" "We wanted to help her manage her finances," he replied. "And at 35 years old, do you really need the help of your 71-year-old mother to pay your rent?" Max had no answer. Mr. Davis was next. He testified about my erratic behavior, but when Mr. Weber questioned Mr. Davis for details, he admitted he had never spoken to me directly. All his claims were based on superficial observations. Dr. Lehman testified that my refusal to undergo a psychiatric evaluation proved mental decline. But Mr. Weber presented the results from Dr. Moore's assessment, which completely disproved that claim. Then it was our turn. Mr. Green, my pharmacist, explained how he had been misled into signing a statement that misrepresented my medication habits. Dr. Moore testified about my excellent mental health, presenting flawless cognitive test results. Mr. Summer from the hardware store confirmed that my financial decisions, like canceling automatic transfers, were entirely rational and correctly handled. Eleanor and my garden club friends shared their first-hand observations of my clarity, vitality, and healthy social life. Finally, it was my turn to speak. I rose with dignity and walked to the witness stand, carrying 71 years of experience, the wisdom gained through pain, and strength discovered through adversity. Guided by Mr. Weber, I told my story in full. The $33,400 spent over 3 years, the humiliation of being excluded from the wedding, the constant emotional manipulation, the invasion of my privacy, and the looming legal threats. Mrs. Richter, Mr. Weber asked, why did you decide to stop financial support for your son and daughter-in-law? Because I finally understood that what I was receiving from them was not love, I said clearly, my voice strong. It was a commercial transaction disguised as a family relationship. My money was welcome, but I was not. Do you regret your decision? He asked. I only regret that it took me so long to see the truth, I replied. I only regret that it took me so long to see the truth. Max's lawyer tried to make me appear confused during his cross-examination, but I answered every question with clarity and precision. When he suggested that my new friendships had somehow manipulated me, I calmly explained that, for the first time in years, I had relationships built on mutual respect, not financial gain. In his closing argument, Max's lawyer insisted I was a victim of outside influence. Mr. Weber's rebuttal was powerful. Your Honor, he said, what we have seen is not an incompetent woman, but a woman who has finally found the strength to protect herself from years of financial and emotional abuse. The plaintiffs have presented no credible medical evidence. What they have presented is frustration that their source of income has chosen to exercise her legal and moral right to manage her own resources. Judge Miller retired to deliberate. 2 hours felt like 2 years. When he returned, his expression was serious, yet firm. After reviewing all the evidence, he began, it is clear that Mrs. Renee Richter is fully capable of managing her affairs. Professional psychiatric evaluations confirm her cognitive competence. Her financial decisions, while perhaps upsetting to her family, are entirely rational and within her rights. Furthermore, the evidence indicates this lawsuit is motivated by financial interest rather than genuine concern for Mrs. Richter's well-being. The request for guardianship is denied. I had won. Not just the lawsuit, but my freedom, my dignity, and my right to live without the abuse of those who claim to love me. As we left the courthouse, I caught sight of Max. I saw Lena arguing angrily with their lawyer. Before she walked away, she gave me a look of pure hatred. Max looked at me one last time, and for a brief second, I thought I saw regret. But it was already too late. That evening, Eleanor organized a celebration at my house with all our friends. We toasted to justice, to freedom, and to the sisterhood of strong women who lift each other up. Renate, Elfrida said, holding my hands, today, you didn't just win a trial. You won back your life. She was right. For the first time in years, the future was completely mine. I could travel, love, create, and live without fear, guilt, or manipulation. 3 months later, I sold my house and moved into a beautiful apartment near the city center. I donated half of my money to organizations that protect the elderly from family abuse. With the other half, I finally began the life I had always dreamed of. I traveled through Europe, took art classes, and joined volunteer groups. I never heard from Max and Lena again. I later learned they had to move to a smaller apartment, and that Lena had found a job for the first time in years. Perhaps the adversity would teach them what my generosity never could: the value of honest work and independence. Some nights, as I look at the stars from my balcony, I think of the woman I was a year ago, fearful, manipulated, believing that love had a price. That woman is gone. In her place is someone who has learned a fundamental truth. True love can't be bought, and freedom is priceless. My name is Renate. I am 72 years old, and I have finally learned that the most important person I must love and protect is myself. If you enjoyed this story, you can support me by making a donation. Every contribution helps me create more stories to share. Thank you so much in advance. I'd also love to hear from you. What would you do if you were in Renate's place? Share your thoughts in the comments. I'm always curious to see what you think. And let me know where you first heard this story. For more life stories like this, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to my channel. There are many more stories waiting for you. With heartfelt greetings. Until next time, M.